are known as A. AEPA is a national purchasing cooperative made up of representatives from educational service agencies in 31 states serving as the board of AEPA. Together, we conduct national bids on behalf of our members and extend those competitively awarded contracts to schools, municipalities, and nonprofits in all 50 states. By working together, we alleviate the burden of our customers having to go out to bid themselves. Our collective purchasing power allows us to secure significant savings through volume-based purchasing. AEPA currently has close to 80 awarded vendor partners across 30 categories, including turf, tracks, and courts, instructional and school supplies, maintenance and custodial products, cybersecurity solutions, and much more. And every year we add additional categories. Our monthly webinar series is designed to provide timely, informative content to our customers while also increasing awareness of AEPA and the high-quality solutions offered by our vendor partners. In today's session, you'll hear from Aaron Nielsen with Quill, who will talk to us about supporting everyday needs and larger projects. We're going to leave time at the end for questions, so please feel free to submit yours via the chat at any time. This session is also being recorded for those who may want to revisit it later or share it with a colleague. So now I will throw it over to Aaron.
Hi, thank you, Kara. Hope everyone can hear me all right. Thank you for being here today. My name is Aaron Nielsen. I'm Assistant Partnership Manager with Quill. So I am the liaison between Quill and AEPA and the state agencies. So today is really about learning how schools are shifting beyond just buying school supplies. I think for people that know us, when you think of Quill, tend to think about just general office supplies, paper, and along those lines. So I did want to do a quick, you know, uh, rundown here of different types of trends that we're seeing and what we're hearing from, different schools and, how Quill can support that through APA and just how we support broader, more than everyday and operational needs in a compliant, simple way. Everyday essentials are typically known for, but we are seeing more and more schools needing support across a much broader range of needs, from furniture projects to health and wellness to facility support. So today I really wanted to walk through a few of the trends we're seeing and then where Quill can support those needs through the APA contracts and in a way which keeps purchasing simple and compliant. So obviously, we're not trying to change things up for you. We are just trying to bring awareness around different ways to utilize, the contract, and then just bring awareness around, what Quill can support you with. So with that being said, I did just want to move over into just the topics, what we're going to cover today. So just a quick look at Quill, who we are, as a whole, what we stand for and whatnot. And then we'll transition into the 2026 K through 12 trends that we're hearing, key trends shaping purchasing decisions and funding. And then, of course, where Quill fits in, solutions supporting both daily needs and larger initiatives. And then, of course, we want to make it easy to buy. We want to simplify procurement with Quill powered by the APA contract. So our goal today is to help you solve today's challenges with smarter compliant purchasing. I want to keep it pretty straightforward as we go on to the next slide. I don't want to spend too much time here. Most of you are probably familiar with Quill at some capacity. Brief overview at a high level. Quill supports schools and public sector organizations nationwide, not just with everyday supplies, but across a much broader mix of needs. From a reliability standpoint, we do fulfill millions of orders each year, which matters because schools need consistency, especially when teams are stretched and timelines are tight. We also like to carry a broad product of assortment so districts can expand beyond classrooms, supplies into areas like I mentioned, furniture, facilities, or wellness. So they're often able to do that without adding another vendor. So we just want to make sure we're not adding more on your plate. We're trying to consolidate and just make purchasing as easy as possible. So what's most relevant for today is that many of those categories are already available through the APA contracts. So schools, like I said, don't need to change the way they buy or order to access them. We just need to find the best way to consolidate and just make purchasing easier for you and your buyers, of course. So don't want to go too deep again, but important context, everything we'll talk about today. When schools expand beyond everyday supplies, reliability really does matter, not just price. So operationally, Quill is built to support that. We carry a broad assortment across all categories that allows districts to source different needs without having to manage multiple vendors, which we know can be a headache, and then less calling and less outreach. We want to make sure you are utilizing your time the best. So, from a service standpoint, we do know schools don't have time to chase orders, troubleshoot the issues. So, responsiveness and consistency are critical and more important now more than ever. And then, logistically, our national fulfillment network allows schools to receive what they need quickly and predictably. Pardon me. We tend to have a good rate of next day delivery, next day air. A lot of items do arrive within 2 days, 1 to 2 business days. I should say, the larger projects items, may go beyond that. But again, reliability and consistently is the name of the game, especially when we're working with time stretches and time sensitive items. So all of that is what allows schools to rely on Quill. So we are more than just supplies, but we do go beyond that for a broader and more ongoing support. So before we get into products or categories, I did want to level set on what schools are dealing with right now, because that's what's really driving purchasing decisions. So what we are hearing consistently is, I think we're all aware, budgets are tighter. Expectations around safety and wellness are increasing and, higher now more than ever. Teams are definitely doing more with less, and procurement still has to stay compliant. So the real question does become, um, how how do you support all of that without making purchasing more complicated? That is the big question. And then that's where, Quill does like to step in. So we're going to go over some specific examples and trends and, how it's supported. So one specific example we are seeing a lot right now is cell phone policies. More districts are either restricting or fully removing phones during instructional times. In some cases, this is driven by state level guidance, and in others, it's a local decision, but the impact is very similar. What is interesting is that it's not just a policy change that's affecting, it does start to create operational needs. So, schools now need a way to manage devices in the classroom, keep students engaged. Obviously, we didn't have that problem. Most of us, when we were in school, didn't have the ability to pop out a phone, but there is a trend where it is becoming distracting. And then, as we can see, there are starting to be different types of laws or guidances to keep students engaged without having the phone, and we really want to maintain this consistency across buildings. So it does becomes less about the policy, excuse me, itself, and more about what helps make that policy work, in day-to-day schools. So whether it's a full-time ban, partial ban, we do want to make sure we are supporting that and just following the guidance. Um, we do have just a little heat map here with the cell phone policy by adoption. I'm not going to go by every state, but if you are participating in these states, the map is really meant to show overall momentum around the cell phone policies. Like I said, we're not going to call out or analyze each individual state, but the key to focus on here is that the direction that it's traveling. You can see that it's no longer in an isolated area, it's becoming a nationwide shift. So on the map, just real quick for reference, the red does represent where policies are already either active or are moving very quickly. And majority of these are often full day-to-day bell to bell restrictions. and which will not allow any student to use it probably other than, a lunch period or any kind of emergency. The orange indicates states where policies are actively rolling out, different rules and whatnot, and districts are working through the implementation phase. So the guidance is there, and they're more or less just trying to figure out what the next steps are, how they want to implement it. And then lastly, the gray does represent the states that are more in a monitoring phase where guidance does exist, but decisions are still largely happening at the district level. So it doesn't mean that there isn't anything going on there. It's going to be a district decision, but it does look like it's pretty consistent that there is a need to get more engagement and, students off their screens, less scrolling, more reading. So what is important here is that even in states shown in gray, again, it's not a future conversation. The districts are already planning, piloting, or preparing for change. So across all three of these categories, the common pattern is what we're seeing is once the policy moves forward, the conversation does quick shiftly from what should the policy be, how to make it work, more to how do we start, providing the needs and whatnot to support these policies. So that's how things like the classroom storage consistency across all buildings and device management is where schools will probably be looking for more practical and scalable solutions. So this is where Quill really does fit in as far as being able to support that, not by introducing something new, but by helping, schools, different districts source what they already need in a more simple way. As districts work through these cell phone policies, we do see a lot of focus on very practical things, like how devices are stored during day to day, how classrooms do stay organized, and how schools maintain consistency from building to building. Those needs typically show up as storage solutions, lockers, carts, classroom level organizational tools, not as one-off purchases, but something that needs to scale. Through Quill, these types of solutions are already available through the AEPA supported categories. So this isn't anything new. A lot of this will fall into anyone that's adopted the furniture category from Quill. Some other solutions that we carry for making space and whatnot, or making things scalable for space, what can fall under the office or educational supply categories. But this is so schools don't have to add different vendors, or you don't have to navigate any new procurement paths to support these changes. So we are in line with that. We are here to support. What is helpful that there is flexibility, whether a district is piloting in a few classrooms or rolling something out more broadly. These options can scale based on how schools choose to implement their policies. So this really becomes less about buying something new, and again, more about making it easier to support what's already happening operationally in a way that does stay compliant and manageable. So another big shift, and I have a 13-year-old and a 5-year-old, so I'm starting to see a lot of these shifts firsthand in schools. A lot of focus around health, wellness, mental health, making sure there are um, rooms where, not rooms, but sensory seating, rooms where kids can decompress and just feel comfortable. And of course, along with that shift, we are realizing that for emergency cadences, it's not just emergency preparedness anymore. It's more about everyday readiness. So we are noticing schools are expected to have the right supplies available. Again, along with that, maintain clean and healthy environments, support student well-being, like I mentioned, in a more visible way. So the expectation does drive a need to excuse me, supplies and create environments that support focus, regulation, and to do this in a way that's manageable across multiple buildings and teams. So from Quill's perspective, this is where health, wellness, and furniture and core supplies really do wrap up and come together. As schools do focus on everyday readiness, they're often sourcing a mix of items, things like first aid supplies, hygiene products, and furniture that supports different types of spaces. Through the AAPA supported contracts, including health, wellness, furniture, and core supply categories, schools can access those items in a way that's already compliant and familiar. What's helpful, or I should say most helpful here, is the ability to standardize across classrooms or buildings without creating new procurement paths. So again, the goal, like I had mentioned a few times, isn't to change what or how you're buying. It's to make it source through an existing compliant path. And another piece that I had personally seen at different types of events and trade shows I've gone to is operational strain. Facilities and operation teams are covering more buildings and more responsibilities, often with less staff, fewer employees, and of course, less time to manage the ordering and restocking. Because of that, efficiency is important now more than ever. Just as important as price. In some cases, it may be more important. So, what we're seeing is a shift towards standardization and repeatable processes. Supplies that are easy to reorder, easy to deploy, and consistent across campuses. And at the same time, preparedness is no longer seasonal. Schools are planning year-round for weather events. I don't know where everybody is today, but I am in the Midwest. We had some very hefty storms last night. I was in my basement, and when these kind of things happen at schools, we got to be prepared for all different type weather occurrences year round to make sure there aren't any disruptions and in a way that it doesn't put any more pressure on your operational needs. And we want to make sure we help you stay ready without adding or creating in complexity. So again, want to go back to this is where we can consolidate. Consolidation really matters. Instead of managing multiple vendors for different categories, schools are looking for ways to standardize, simplify everyday facilities, operational needs. Through Quill, districts can source things like janitorial, cleaning, readiness supplies, all different types of cleaning chemicals as well through the existing APA contract pathways, which would fall under our 023C office supplies contract. This will help facilities teams spend less time managing vendors and focus more on keeping the buildings ready and running smoothly. And I think I wanted this slide before the one before that, but we do have the ability to just call out an example here. We carry products like Quick Dam. These are the types of items schools use for water control in emergency situations, especially during severe weather or unexpected disruptions. What's useful here is this is a good example of how the office supply contract can still support preparedness well beyond what people traditionally think. It gives schools a way to be ready without having to source emergency products outside their normal purchasing process. So we've talked about a decent amount of items today. I did really want to hit on the trends and then just let you know how there are solutions that Quill can support, of course, without, changing changing your buying, ways or your day-to-day operational needs. So again, we covered, classroom policies, safety, and wellness, facilities preparedness. What we typically hear from schools is that once needs expand beyond basic supplies, managing all of that through separate vendors does become difficult and it does become difficult quickly. So, why most schools or that we work with do prefer to choose Quill is the ability to consolidate while still getting expert support. It's not just about having access to products, it's about having support behind them. Again, across areas like furniture, technology, print and promotional needs. schools can work with specialists who help plan, source, and execute projects. So we're not just a place to order. We do have knowledgeable experts in each category that can help with sourcing items, different types of dimensions, all sorts of recommendations that will work, for your need. So again, schools aren't just buying items anymore. They are starting to roll out, work with the changes. We are working with managing timelines and working with limited staffs and budgets. So the value really does come down to simplicity and support, being able to move forward with fewer vendors. You want to make sure you have clear expertise and confidence in the execution, that we are providing, and it's not just products anymore. So all this, to clarify, all this is supported through the APA contracts, depending on your state's participation. These contracts are competitively solicited and already in place, which helps simplify the procurement process. So instead of starting from scratch, schools are able to purchase through an established compliant pathway, allowing teams to focus on needs, not procurement hurdles. So I do want to wrap up here as far as what we're able to support and different trends we're seeing. Would love to hear any questions that you have. I hope this did give you a clear picture of how Quill can support not just everyday needs, but some of the broader challenges schools are managing today. If it is helpful, I'm always happy to connect. I am the AEPA liaison for Quill. So I'm here to work with you, questions, concerns, even after this, if you want to connect, talk through, how we can support you and what that'd look like for your organization, feel free to let me know.
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned you had storms last night because I know you're having connection issues. And just so you know, Aaron, everyone could hear you fine, but people can't see you. Um,
Oh, shoot.
so I got a couple of texts. I see you, but you're frozen. But that's okay.
Uh,
But
we
we heard everything and we saw all your slides.
okay. Yeah, we got hit pretty hard yesterday, and I think some connection issues are still carrying over.
So we did have a few questions pop up in the chat while you were speaking. Can you talk more about the types of furniture people can get through this contract for schools and towns and nonprofits, other organizations?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Quill carries a variety of furniture. I mean, it's a very expanded category on our website with our furniture specialists. So, we carry furniture, wellness furniture from couches, modular couches, along with that, different types of tables, whether it's collaborative tables with seating, lunchroom tables. We have sensory items as well too, as there are more and more students that have sensory needs, due to different challenges they work with. So we have sensory furniture. Realistically, anything you can think of, we'll be able to source. That is what makes our furniture team so special. Is if there are any specific tables, we have examples where they wanted computer tables without the hole in the middle for cords to wrap through because I don't know, kids are playing with that too much. So they worked with one of the main vendors or suppliers of those tables to source that. So again, Quill's website does have quite a few SKUs on there. But if you're not seeing something, that's really where you want to connect with your account manager or me, because I can partner with our experts in, the category we're speaking about, and we 9 out of 10 times are able to supply what schools and customers are looking for. So the furniture is very broad. I can't list every single thing, but if you ever want to, feel free to go on our cool website. There is a category section, furniture. We have so many items there, but I did want to just, extend reassurance that whatever you're looking for, I'm more than likely able to find it. We will be very transparent. If it's some odd situation where you can't, we will definitely work with our other partners. We are sure a lot of you are aware, we are a partner company with Staples themselves. So a lot of times we can bounce off what they have, and within the AAPA contract, there still is option for custom pricing. We do want to make sure we respect your budgets as well. So I hope that answered. I know that was kind of a broad answer, but we carry just quite a variety of options for furniture.
So someone is trying to find contact information for the experts you talk about for furniture, technology, print. He's looking in his punch out. I don't know if that's through Una, I'm guessing, but can you talk about where people can find that information?
Yeah, so that is something that is a great point out that you have there because as I was kind of preparing this slide deck, I really wanted to call out our specialist team, and I was unable to find him on our website. We used to have a section where it would show our specialists. Now, as we are doing different types of updates, I think they removed that page because the page I had in my slide deck is my active team in furniture, health and wellness. So, and tech, excuse me. So I don't think it would take very much for my team upstairs to put it back on the web page. It may have just been a miss. But again, my information was listed on the slideshow. If you need me to provide any information for you, I can. But typically through the Punch Out Marketplace, it does try to reflect our actual quote Quill website. So to make things easier, I'll definitely put the request to get that information back up there because it's vital. I mean, you don't want to reach out to your account manager just for them to transfer you to, a specialist. I believe it should be something you should find right away. So I love that call out and that feedback, and we'll make sure we get that up.
Where do you typically see schools missing out on savings or leaving money on the table?
Um, I think a lot of times where schools miss out on savings and budget on a table is one common area is probably over fragmentation, managing many vendors across categories. This does often lead to inconsistent pricing, duplicated effort, and missed opportunities for standardization. Another area is underutilizing contracts that already exist. Schools sometimes purchase items off contract because they don't realize those products like facility supplies, wellness items, or even preparedness solutions are already covered under the APA contracts that they have access to. So in layman's terms, I think a lot of times people get used to I don't want to call any specific company out, but there are, there's like your Amazon where we all use it for ourselves as well too, and it's a great company. But sometimes, that's just one example. There's other people, other vendors that are used, but you get kind of wrapped up in using it over and over again just because it is what you're used to, and it becomes um, starting to drift away from making sure you are receiving the best prices and whatnot. So that's where you do see a lot of missed opportunities. That and sometimes. On the Quill side, if someone is, they think they're part of the APA contract, they've had the discussion, but their account manager hasn't heard that discussion yet, and it's not linked with the correct pricing on our website. So that is something that, I'm always here to do to make sure all your accounts enterprises, if you're not part of a punch out or able to access a marketplace for your state agency, my job is to make sure you're seeing all the correct pricing. And then the biggest thing is I know everybody hates it, but when our account managers do reach out, we are really looking out to make sure one, you're utilizing the contract the best way possible. And two, we do want to be competitive. We know there are some areas we are not the best priced on specific items, but overall, we are very confident we can always provide an overall savings. So on top of the category discounts outside of the pre-negotiated bid items, our reps are able to offer custom pricing and really just work with your budget. We understand that this is more for the students and the development of the future. I come from a family of teachers, watched both my parents spend money out of their pocket for students. So to me, I do want to make sure everyone's getting the most bang for their buck.
Yes, the AEPA contracts are not to exceed, so oftentimes we will see our vendors be able to do better pricing um, at times. What's a quick thing that schools or towns can implement right now to make their purchasing process easier?
Mm, a quick win is just kind of taking a short inventory of which APA contracts are already available that align with your everyday purchasing needs, specific to those contracts as much as possible. So the way I know a lot of people or the people that my account managers are working with, we're consolidating everything by categories. So just consolidating everything to one or two categories, just like janitorial supplies or classroom essentials. And thinking about that through a single APA approved vendor can immediately reduce complexity. It really does start to save time and it starts to create more consistency across schools and buildings. I know a lot of times people think of individual items. They think about where they got it from, which vendor, at which price. They have so and so for their paper. But when you start breaking it down categorically and you start analyzing your APA contract and seeing where your vendor of choice, where it falls under, you can really start seeing, consolidation as far as operations, saving time, and then saving money. So that's probably the quickest way we can, a school can start implementing the right way to make purchasing process easier, in my opinion. But that's where we're seeing consistently through, the accounts that we do manage.
For schools that haven't used Quill through AEPA yet, what's the easiest way to get started?
So there's a couple ways to do it. The easiest way is, well, one of the easiest ways is to reach out to your Quill account manager. If you do have a Quill account, typically at some point you've gotten some sort of email, or they will reach out again, or you can simply just to go to quill.com in whatever, state you're part of. I believe there is a quill.com /AEP. I can send that out to everybody. It'll direct you the right way. So either that or your Quill account manager can get you set up. But a lot of times, if you are getting set up through a punch out system or your marketplace, your state agency representative tends to reach out to us, and then we get everything set up on our end. But I would say, reaching out to your Quill account manager, reaching out to your Quill APA liaison, which is me, or your state, head of your state agency. For instance, crack, would be Kara. She can, be put in contact with me and just make sure everything runs smoothly. So that's the best way to get things started. And then, follow up from there. We tend to have an account manager just go briefly what I went through today in a business review format where we have the ability to kind of get an idea of what your spend is, and then we do a nice full consultation, and then realistically just dive into the best way to utilize the contract, best way to utilize your account manager, again, to make sure purchasing is simple and then you are compliant and staying within budget constraints.
So Craig Peterson in Nebraska just shared the link to the APA page on the Quill side.
Perfect.
And so I think he can only send that to me. So I'm sending it now to everyone so that
Great.
everyone has it. And that is all for questions. So thank you, Aaron, for your time today and expertise. And thank you, everyone who joined us. If you have any follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to your APA state representative. You can find their contact information on our website at aepacoop.org under the contact section. Our next webinar will be held on May 20th and will feature Tiny Eye, who will present on special education staffing shortages and solutions. So we hope you'll join us again for that session and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.